As the gentle breeze of springtime warms a winter world, a new year begins. As the golden sun of morning scatters the shadows of night, a new day begins. As the love of God reaches out to take our hand at the gate of death, so a new life begins. Would you please be seated? Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this sad and very special occasion. Taking anybody's funeral is a solemn thing to do. This is one that I would definitely wish not to have taken, for the simple reason that this lovely man I would have thought would well outlive me. But I would have been disappointed not to be the person standing here today, because Rupert was a friend and someone that I loved and was entertained by in many ways and warmed by on many occasions in this building whilst I was the vicar here. Let's just take a moment of quiet. Support us, Lord, when we are silent through grief. Comfort us when we are bent down with sorrow. Help us as we bear the weight of our loss. Loving God, give us strength. We come today to express our sorrow, but also our sheer joy for everything that Rue meant to us and brought into our lives. We come to remember, but also to anticipate, to mourn, but also to give thanks. We come with gratitude in our hearts for all that this lovely man has meant to us, for all he continues to mean to us. We come to acknowledge a good life well lived, and in faith to commit both Rupert and ourselves to your eternal care. Loving God, draw near to us in these moments. Speak comfort and strength to us through words and music, through our prayers, through all that we will share through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen. I'm going to begin with a reading from 1 Corinthians chapter 13.
Rupert asked me to read this to you today. Rupert did me the honour of reading this at my wedding to Bridget 34 years ago. And today, under very different circumstances, I am honoured to do so for you, Rupe. It transcends happy and sad times. It meant a lot to Rupert and could have been written for him. 1 Corinthians 13. If I speak in the tongues of men or of angels, but do not have love, I am only a resounding gong or a clanging cymbal. If I have the gift of prophecy and can fathom all mysteries and all knowledge, and if I have a faith that can move mountains, but do not have love, I am nothing. If I give all I possess to the poor and give over my body to hardship that I may boast, but do not have love, I gain nothing. Love is patient. Love is kind. It does not envy. It does not boast. It is not proud. It does not dishonour others. It is not self-seeking. It is not easily angered. It keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, and always perseveres. Love never fails, but where there are prophecies, they will cease. Where there are tongues, they will be stilled. Where there is knowledge, it will pass away. For we know in part and prophesy in part. But when completeness comes, what we know in part disappears. When I was a child, I talked like a child. I thought like a child. I reasoned like a child. When I became a man, I put the ways of childhood behind me. For now we see only reflection as in a mirror. Then we shall see face to face. Now I know in part, then I shall know fully, even as I am fully known. And now these three remain: faith, hope, and love. But the greatest of these is love.
The Dalai Lama famously said, "Kindness is my religion." And the New Testament says God is love, the only definition of God that there is in the Bible, that God is love. So it's such an appropriate thing to read that passage here today, because I think that religion begins with love, it ends with love, and it's love all the way in between, and everything else window dressing. And Rupert knew that and understood that, and so I'm so pleased that that reading was chosen for today. Let's all stand and sing "Immortal, Invisible, God Only Wise."
Hello, Jill, Amy, Rupert's sisters and brothers, and all his friends and relatives, and to everyone online as well. And hi, Rupert, our dear Peterite friend. Any one of us could be standing here today, but it's me, because Rupert apparently thought I would big him up the most. The irony is that no one needs to do that. I'm honoured to be asked to say a few words on behalf of us all. I've known Rupert for nearly 50 years. Along with a couple of others in the church and online, he's my oldest friend. Rupert was one in a million. How on earth do you describe someone like that in just a few words? My initial thoughts turned out to be words that nearly all begin with the third letter of the alphabet. Rupert would enjoy this alliteration once David had explained to him what that phrase meant. I'm sure you will all recognise the Rupert I'm about to describe. He was always charismatic, charming, cool, cheeky. A crooner who liked nothing more than singing songs, from his Fleetwood Mac, Bee Gees, Phil Collins, and Barry Manilow love songs repertoire. He was caring, particularly for Jill and Amy, and his parents, Dr. Charles and Moira, in their later years. He was compassionate and very proud to have worked with the homeless and to have met Princess Diana when she visited Centrepoint, the youth homelessness charity where he was working at the time. He was content in the way he wanted to be, and always appeared to be in a state of peaceful happiness. The one exception to the letter C is that he was annoyingly handsome. We were always going to lose standing or dancing next to Rupert. Rupert was an artist who could both draw and paint. He was a writer who loved poetry. He often quoted King Lear. How accurately, I'm not so sure. And when he visited me at uni, he introduced himself to all the ladies there as a thespian. There was some truth in this, as he had appeared in a couple of school plays, performing the role of the Grand Duke in Brecht's Caucasian Short Circle, and as Friar John in Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet. To our great surprise, his acting potential was actually recognised, and Rupert soon had his first professional acting gig as an extra. Rupert was to act the part of a police officer, running onto set and announcing that there was a police raid. He timed his entrance perfectly, ran on, stopped, and said to great dramatic effect, "This is a police raid." The director, somewhat stunned, asked him to try again, saying raid beginning with an R. On the fifth time of asking, Rupert lost his shot at stardom, and his acting career was over before it had begun. Rupert undoubtedly had film star looks and a dancing ability to rival that of Richard. But Rupert was perhaps best known at school for his sporting prowess. In those early years, going back to St. Olave's, he was a fine athlete. Looking back at the records, it was clear that he was always a winner on sports day. And here's a quote from the St. Olave's School magazine in 1977, written by a very partisan Ainsty housemaster, Mr. Field, lovingly known as Aga, because he taught us Latin. On sports day, we won the Shield for the third consecutive year. We won by a record number of points, and though the whole team were magnificent, special mention must be made to our captain, Rupert Smith, who won all his 3 individual events. Sadly, I was the loser to him. Because he was fast, Rupert played rugby as a 3-quarter back, in the centre and latterly on the wing. I played next to him, which is when our friendship, and those of several of you here today, deepened and widened. His primary purpose on the field was to score tries, and he scored many, some of them spectacular. His signature dive over the try line was entirely unnecessary and often got him into trouble with the coach, but it was a winner for Rupert. As long as the girls were watching from the top bank, Rupert was happy. Those girls just loved him. The mums absolutely adored him. And the dads, well, perhaps a little less so at the time, but with deep fondness nevertheless. Our parents would always ask after Rup. At school, we were a pretty naughty year and constantly questioned authority and the rules. There was no malice or bad faith, but we were undoubtedly rebellious teenagers, flexing our 1970s nonconformity to the max. We all have stories of Rup in this phase. Mine is to do with cars. Rup was one of the first to pass his driving test, aged 17, and his parents very kindly made their cars available to him. Keeping a car on the road turned out not to be Rupert's strong suit. One wintry evening at a party, we were called upon to assist another friend who had skidded on the ice and crashed his dad's Volvo estate into a garden wall. At the scene, Rupert helpfully shone his headlights on the severely damaged vehicle, and if the truth be told, we were sniggering at the same time. As I opened the passenger door to get out to help, Rupert put the car into an abrupt reverse. The door hit the unseen left-hand side embankment and promptly parted company from the remainder of the vehicle. We spent the rest of the evening trying to work out how to explain the absence of a door to Rupert's dad. Typically, we concluded that we could get away with it by pretending nothing had happened. So we drove back to Shipton Road and parked on the drive with me holding the door firmly in place. As we proceeded to extract ourselves, Dr. Charles came out to greet us. It was way too late to disguise the fact that I was standing there next to Rup, holding a car door that was most definitely nowhere near the vehicle to which it belonged. Dr. Charles was such a kind and loving dad that the incident was quickly overlooked without consequence. Rup's siblings might be able to tell you if he received the same response when he later wrote off both that car and the family camper van. Rup was a fantastic friend, and we had an incredibly tight friendship group, which endures to this day. We holidayed together, we skied together, enjoying annual wacky races on the pistes. We partied together, and we golfed together, although we were always pretty perplexed by Rup's interpretation of the RNA rules regarding provisional balls and his own unique scoring system. As our girlfriends and later partners, wives and children came along, we shared each other's engagements, weddings and christenings. We were all ushers or best man at each other's weddings. We all have our favourite Rupert wedding stories. This one took place in 1992, when Andy Gibb, who I believe is online, and Tracy got married in the US. Rupert managed to fly out but had nowhere to stay. I was barely a year into my own marriage with Lorna, but she gamely agreed that Rupert should share our bedroom, as it had a spare child's bed, and he literally had nowhere to sleep. We vividly remember the face of room service when they brought breakfast up the next morning, with all three of us still in our beds. In time, the strength of those friendships meant that it was only natural that we should all be godparents to the little ones who started to arrive. Rupert was godfather to 3 of those children. 2 of them, Sam and Becca, are here today. His third godchild, Millie, whose wedding we all attended to 2 years ago, is, Rupert would be thrilled to know, having a baby any time now. Otherwise, both she and Bridget would be here. Millie's wedding was in fact the last time we were all together partying carefree in our usual style. Thankfully, the Southern and US contingent did manage to celebrate turning 60 with Rupert and Jill only 3 months ago, so we have plenty of recent happy memories to draw on. And we raised a glass to Rupert this last Sunday when we gathered for JM's 60th in Rupert's beloved Yorkshire. Above all the partying and the fun, the happiest I've ever seen Rupert was when he announced that he and Jill would become parents. We were humbled when they bestowed on Linda, David and me the great honour of being godparents to Amy. Amy, if you never need us, we are here for you and Jill. And if you ever wish to know in your life what your dad would have said or thought, we will always be here to tell you. In recent years, we have sadly started to attend more wakes than weddings, as our parents' generation passes on. I honestly couldn't have imagined we would be at the funeral of one of our own. At those sad occasions, Rupert and I often talked about his strong Christian faith, which he would readily admit he occasionally strayed from, and his views on love, friendship, life and death. He said them again in his last few days. The following words, attributed to Joyce Grenfell, to me really encapsulate these recent conversations that I had with Rupert. And I believe he would be quietly nodding and smiling in appreciation as I now read these out. If I should go before the rest of you, break not a flower, nor inscribe a stone, nor when I am gone speak in a Sunday voice, but be the usual self that I have known. Weep if you must. Parting is hell, but life goes on, so sing as well. Rupe, we are singing for you, and you will always be amongst us. It's not goodbye, because we will see you again. We are confident that your charm, wit, and good deeds on this earth have already got you through those pearly gates, and we are sure you are still the charming, cheeky crooner that you were down here, but more importantly, the gentle, kind, loving, and caring human being, partner, dad, relative, and wonderful friend that we all knew and loved. Please reserve a place for us at the 19th hole, and one day we will find you there. No doubt remarking your own card and ignoring the couple of air shots you took and hoped that no one saw. On a personal note, with your death, my friend, you have taken a part of my soul, leaving a Rupert-shaped hole behind. I will never be able to fill it. We all love you dearly, Rupe. You are thankfully now out of pain. Rest in peace till we meet again. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to take a deep breath and stand and sing again, Amazing Grace. Please stand.
going to say a few words about dear Rupert and why we particularly chose this reading for him. This passage from the Bible seems to reflect some of Ru's approach to life. His strong conviction that everyone should be treated the same, and those at the bottom of the pile be elevated to the most important in society. One way he showed that was how he always aimed to leave absolutely whoever he met with a smile on their face for the day, through his constant joking and clever quips. He had a very deep feeling for people's struggles in life, and through his political satire and campaigning under the pseudonym Max Albedo, he used hilarious, cutting humour and wit to display his sharp understanding of humanity. Possibly most of all, we saw a glimpse of Ru's philosophy of life through his incredible love of the film It's a Wonderful Life. Ru seemed to want to bring to every day the way the film portrays the loving embrace of a magical Christmas gathering and the importance everyone can bring to it. He associated himself with the character George Bailey's railing against the corporates and establishment, with the strength and faith of the underdog to fight them, and with everyone's right to a peaceful existence. But most of all, perhaps, amongst all the paradoxes he saw in life, and that being a human throws up, the only way through it all with Ru was laughter, love and warmth. When we met recently to do our usual putting the world to rights, as we did often, I asked him if he wanted to talk about some of the recent positive reviews on the big spiritual and social issues It's a Wonderful Life explores. As I somehow suspected, he said he'd rather not delve too deeply, for once, as it might ruin the magic. To Ru, it was all about the magic. Ru had the courageous, commanding spirit and charm to create that magic, and I know above all, he wanted to make sure Jill and Amy felt it the most. So, Romans 12, living a loving life. Love must be sincere. Hate what is bad. Cling to what is good. Be devoted to one another in love. Honour one another above yourselves. Never be lacking in zeal, but keep your spiritual fervour following God. Be joyful in hope, patient in affliction, faithful in prayer. Share with people who are in need, practice hospitality. Bless those who persecute you. Bless and do not curse. Rejoice with those who rejoice. Mourn with those who mourn. Live in harmony with one another. Do not be proud, but be eager to associate with people of low position. Do not be conceited. Do not repay anyone wrong for wrong. Be careful to do what is right in the eyes of everybody. If it is possible, as far as it depends on you, live at peace with everyone. Do not take revenge, my friends, but leave room for God's indignation. For it's written, "It is mine to avenge. I will be the one to repay," says God. On the contrary, if your enemy is hungry, feed him. If he is thirsty, give him something to drink. In doing this, you will heap burning coals on his head. Do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good. Well lived, Rupert.
Well, it's true that we are going to sing again now. I should just tell you that, when I met with Jill and Aim, they showed me this little tin. Well, there's little sort of creme cigar tins that was bulging with cuttings that he made from service sheets here of all his favourite hymns that he would quite like today. And so I'm going to tell you, it's quite a job to whittle it down to what we have. But it's sufficient to say that these are all hymns that he loved and were important to him. And I'm sure, in his own way, he is singing along with us today. So sing for Rupert. Let's stand and sing. I cannot tell why he whom angels worship should set his love upon the sons of men. Do sit down. So Rupert, Rue, however you knew him, was quite simply one of the sweetest guys that I have ever met and been blessed to have counted as a friend. When he was at church, he mostly seemed to be somewhere around the back, really, apart from when he came forward to give readings that completely made everybody swoon. He was warm and witty and talented, entertaining, extremely good-looking, as we've heard, had a voice to charm the angels, which I'm pretty sure is what he is doing right now. He was one of my favourite people to hang out in this place. Perhaps his gritty goodness was down to him hailing from God's own country, which I don't, but I do have a great love for Yorkshire, where he grew up with his two sisters, Jo and Pen, and his brothers Baz and Jerry, and of course with their parents Myra and Charles. There is just too much, as has already been said, about Rue's life for anyone to cover in the context of a service like this. Neil gave us a wonderful picture, but I mean, in a nutshell, he grew up in York, studied at Newcastle University, lived on a boat at Battersea, I believe, where he inadvertently went about dyeing the river with his sheets. Another story. He had a heart of gold and cared for homeless folk. He volunteered at Centrepoint, where, of course, he met Jill, the love of his life. He also, as we know, dived into acting, where, among many other things, he was regularly spotted as an extra in the bill, all over the place. Do you know, I get the feeling that Rupert had the talent to turn his hand to almost anything that he chose to do. He did some DJing back in the day, in the early 90s, when along with Baz and Naz and Gail, he helped to set up Thursdays, an alternative church group, which is where I first knew of him, because me and Pat were busy at the time leading a similar alternative church group called Holy Joe's in a pub in Clapham. We were all at it back then. And of course, he was a fab dad to Amy, who adored him and does. She and Jill were telling me about some of his many adventures, like fishing off what sounds like a very dangerous ledge in Pembrokeshire. He's big on fishing, huh? Loved camping with the family and bunches of other families where the dads would have fishing competitions. I'm sure he won. He loved golf and playing tennis at the court on Parliament Hill with Jill, desperately hoping that one day he would get the better of her. Never mind. Jo also gave me some wonderful snapshots of Rue, her slightly younger brother. She remembers games of walk the doggy with a slip knot around Jerry's neck. It's good, isn't it? Thankfully, she says, polo neck jumpers were in fashion then to aid their mum cutting the string. Jo says that his knack of creating and telling stories would entertain them for hours, especially when laid in the camper bed, being lulled to sleep as their dad drove them through the night to lovely destinations. And even more hours acting out the stories, often privately in their own little group, or dressing up from a fancy dress box to a home audience. Clearly, as she says, an actor in the making back then. Or, you know, you never know, a priest, really. We like dressing up a bit too. Always the budding DJ, Jo says, soundtrack of our youth played out of his little cassettes such as Elvis, Beatles, ABBA, and That'll Be the Day. Later, it felt like for years he did hospital radio at night, mostly to a sleeping audience, where apparently he lulled them to sleep, where apparently we all too often phoned in for requests. And of course, we all look forward to the yearly Christmas present of a recording of his special Christmas show. Throughout his life, Jo says, he's been my best dance partner in the disco part of the Cornwall barn dances, at the teen and 20 and other balls and parties at the time. Also in Ibiza, when he and Baz visited me one summer that I spent there, and when they visited me for one of the wild parties we had in Dartford at my nurse's residence, where I was so proud to show them off to all my mates. In later years, she says, Rupert introduced me to dance music, which I'd always viewed as repetitive nonsense, but grew to love and since shared many nights dancing away with all the family in many venues. Jo went on to tell me He had a big heart for the work he chose, the support of the marginalised and connecting with people from all walks of life and ages with his cheeky wit, charm and his beaming smile. The cousins will recall the many hours at family gatherings of him fighting with all the youngsters. He influenced me in many parts of my life, even spiritually as I grew and questioned through our shared chats and reading suggestions. And then his final huge support to me when he moved up to take over looking after Dad. I felt we connected at a new level during this time. It was such a comfort having him and then Jill and Aim living there, especially after Dad died, a very dark period of my life, and for his continued support of Mum through the next 6 years. And Joe finished by saying, Rupe has touched so many people's lives in his far too short one, but his good life lives on in Aim. You know, when I personally think about Rue, the word that comes to my mind is kindness, and I'm pretty sure you'd all agree with that, really. He was a very kind person. When I think about what I would like on my own headstone, which I do from time to time, I conclude simply that I would like, he was a kind man who left the world a little kinder than he found it. Well, I reckon this man definitely has done that. Rupert was lucky enough to never lose his boyish looks, that cheeky smile and the twinkle in the eye, which I'll never forget. He was also so playful at heart, and hence I wish that he could read this to you, but thinking about him, it's what I wanted to read, and I think you'll get the hang of it. You see, began Christopher with a long sigh, it's like sleeping for a long, long time. Christopher Robin was surrounded by his friends under his favourite tree. It rested on the top of a hill overlooking the entire 100-acre wood. He was older now, and he knew that he didn't have much more time left with them. But going to sleep means that someday you'll wake up, Pooh said with a smile. Precisely, Owl exclaimed. And we'll be here when you do, Kanga added. I'll even make you breakfast. Christopher couldn't help but smile. I would very much like that. But you all have to understand that it will be a very long time. Oh, we're great at waiting a long time, Rabbit. Rabbit here waits every year for the carrots to grow in the garden, Tigger chimed in. And every year you destroy them, Rabbit snarled. But Christopher, Rue interjected, jumping into Christopher's lap, what are we going to do when you're gone? Oh, I won't be gone, Rue. I'll be here, right here. Christopher placed his finger over Rue's heart. Rue giggled and scrunched up into a ball. We'll be just fine, muttered Eeyore. I'm used to being alone, anyways. None of you will be alone. You're a family now. And while I'm gone, you will all take care of each other. But you will be back, right, Christopher? Stuttered Piglet. Christopher let out a soft sigh and looked around at all of his friends. It was going to be difficult to help them to understand. They probably never would. Sometimes good things come to an end. But here's the secret, everyone. Come close. They all huddled together underneath the tree to listen to Christopher's secret. Memories are forever, he whispered, and tapped Pooh on the nose. Memories, said Pooh. Well, I have plenty of those, like that time we saved you from the heffalumps. Or when you helped me fix my garden, cried Rabbit. Or when you organised my library for me, exclaimed Owl. Or that time you built me a new house out of those sticks you found in the woods, Eeyore added sullenly. It didn't last the night, but I remember it. Yes, yes. All of those are memories, and you will have them forever, just like I will have my memories of all of you. Christopher stood up and took one last look over the 100-acre wood. The sun was setting in the orange autumn sky, and the trees were beginning to lose their leaves. It was time he went home. Christopher gathered all his friends together and began walking back down the hill. They were all busy discussing the memories that they had with each other. "Christopher," Pooh said, looking up at Christopher as they walked hand in hand, "you aren't coming back, are you?" Christopher looked down at the ground and took a moment before he responded, "No, Pooh, I won't be coming back this time." They walked in silence, listening to the sound of the crunching leaves underneath their feet. Pooh suddenly stopped and looked intently into the ground. "I believe I'm going to miss you, Christopher," he said with a soft, broken voice. Christopher leaned down, took his lifelong friend into his arms. "I will miss you too, Pooh. I will miss you very, very much." Take a moment of quiet as you call to mind your own thoughts of Rue at this moment and just hold him in your heart. And if you would open your service sheets, we'll join together in saying the words of the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Would you please stand? Where can I go from your spirit, or where can I flee from your face? If I climb the heavens, you are there. If I lie in the grave, you are there also. If I take the wings of the dawn and dwell in the sea's furthest end, even there your hand would lead me, your right hand would hold me fast. If I say, let the darkness hide me, and the light around me be night, even darkness is not darkness to you, and the night is as clear as day. Loving God, we thank you for all your blessings to Rupert throughout his earthly life, and that now for him sorrow and sickness are no more